you these questions from Instagram, or you just
Yes.
text you?
Yeah.
I'll just send you a screen. Your shoes are sick. Thank you. I don't know stock because I don't sell
How that tattoo?
Look at that tattoo.
I just had a long conversation. It's like my friend made this huge existential spiel about just that little symbol. It's like as meaningful to him as like yin yang.
Oh, cool. Very sick. All right, are we ready?
I think so.
All right. All right. Hello. Decorum people. Welcome back. This is our first in-person meeting of the semester. Clap, clap, clap. Yeah, it's great to see you all. Thanks for coming back. Raise your hand if you've never been here before. Hello, welcome. We can just do a really quick introduction. My name's Lauren. This is Kenny. And then we have one member that's not here today. He's unwell, but he's here. And then where's Alexis? That's Alexis. That's our other member. And soon we will have some new members. What's that? Hi, Franco, on the Zoom.
Hi, Franco.
So,
Hello.
for those, did everybody get the email? Does everyone know what's happening today? For those who do not, these are our lovely seniors. They're here to talk about a lot of topics that we wanted to cover today that matter to me, at least, were careers, like success while you are in school, how to work on projects when you're in school, some successful tips with your coursework and stuff like that. And, I really look back when I was 18, 19, starting the film scoring major and in the game scoring major, and I didn't really know anything. I really would have appreciated some insight on these things. So raise your hand if you're if you're in the film scoring major right now, like if you've declared, okay. And then, so we have about half an hour. So this is good. So I thought I'd introduce our panelists. So I would love you guys to start thinking of really, really good questions. They can be bad questions, that's fine. But good questions about, any of these lovely people to my left. So I'd love for everybody to introduce themselves. Why we kind of, Kenny and I think everybody kind of seems to, in our panel, have film scoring is kind of something that they all do, and then they all kind of have something that makes them a little bit unique. So, we have John over here. He is really involved in the field right now as he's going through school and has a great career forming for him. We have Denaya, who kind of reps our game department / she's also worked in documentary, which is really cool. We have the lovely Rebecca, president of the WFI, who's really also involved in composition. She's double majoring, so we'd love to hear from double major. Really involved in composition department, really great with technology, all that good stuff. And then we have Sandro, who is film scoring. Do you have another degree?
Composition.
Oh, I didn't know that. Composition also. And then Sandro also has taken some of the really cool advanced selectives at Berkeley that the film scoring department offers, and he's really great at orchestration and mock-ups and all that. So yeah, everybody here is super talented. So without further ado, if we could just welcome everybody. I just want to start off if everybody could just kind of introduce yourselves a little bit and some things that you want to say about yourself in regards to what you do and stuff like that. John, do you want to start?
Sure. So, hello, my name is Jonathan. This is my last semester here at Berkeley, and I do work in the industry now. So I'm working right now with Telepictures, which is a Warner Bros. company, and I'm doing also work with 5 Alarm Music, which is the biggest indie production syncing house that there is in the States. And then I also do work with House Music Library, which is another giant library company. And I just recently got my first credit in American Pickers, 5 episodes of their show and history channel. I also work with Showtime, HBO, and through there is I kind of excelled in my not only composition but also business skills, working with different deals and all that stuff. I also do YouTube on the side, so any technology stuff in Cubase, Logic, and any other kind of technical things that have to do with film scoring. It's John Moon Studios. I could give it to you at the end, or maybe write it down somewhere, but I could give you that information. It's basically a YouTube channel where I'm teaching you how to use the dolls that we use here at school, which Cubase is the main one for film scoring. And yeah, I teach on the side, and I'm a full-time student here.
Hi, I'm Denaya.
I'm also last semester. Yeah, my minor is video game scoring. I got into video game scoring pretty new. I'm still kind of fresh in it, but I really love the minor. I think it's an amazing program. I do work outside documentary works, like for documentaries. I think for me, I also love anime. So I want to go to Japan actually to compose for video game anime. I think also something I'm very interested in, and the kind of culture there as well as the video game scene as well.
I'm Rebecca. Like Lauren said, I'm a double major with a minor, so I do the comp major and the film scoring major, and then the conducting minor. So there's majors about doubling in any fashion. Let's see. So I've done largely like freelance work with different students in the area at Leslie, at Emerson, at other things. And then I was just and Lauren was too, there's an advanced practicum. You work with Columbia grad students on their thesis films and other things like that. So that's kind of on the film scoring side of things. On the comp side of things, I have a few commissions I'm working on currently that would premiere this year, actually. So if you have questions about kind of how different the worlds are different and the way you work is different and the way that you collaborate is also very different. So questions about that or working with people or things of that nature, or just anything all around. That's kind of the background. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sandro. I'm also film scoring and composition. I mostly like to write. I'm like a huge nerd, so I'm like really into, I got inspired by big action movies with like big orchestral scores. And so that's something that I'm really focused on. And I also really like smaller indie productions. I'm also in the class that Rebecca mentioned, the film scoring practicum this year. So I'm excited to get into that. And then on the composition side, I mostly kind of just write for myself. I've got like piano music on the way out. Yeah, mostly just the writer type.
Yeah. So aren't they all cool? I only I'm friends with everybody here. I know Kenny is too, and these are people I really admire, and I think they're just so cool, motivated people. And so, one of my first questions that I wanted to kind of have a discussion about, and if you have a question, like please just raise your hand, and then we can start kind of getting them. We have some on Instagram. If you want to fill out the Instagram poll, we could also like ask from there, but it'd be great if you asked in person. I wanted to talk first about the transition from being just like a student taking classes to a student starting to set themselves up kind of early on to work while they're still a student, like making connections and starting to build up kind of who you are and kind of what you want to do while you're still being a student. Because that's a question I've gotten before, like how do you manage being a student? How do you manage also working while being a student? And how do you kind of get work as a student kind of to start with? So if anyone has an answer that they know right away, you can just start, or if you want to just go around.
I guess I could start. So I actually started a while ago. I'm 25, so I actually have a degree in music business from Miami, and I actually started my film scoring career back there. And essentially what I did was, as a student, I just started building my portfolio as a film composer. I started writing a bunch of demos and stuff. And I used the guerrilla tactic of just kind of going on Instagram, and every day I'd make a goal and say, I'm going to message 50 indie directors a day and just say, hey, my name is Jonathan. This is what I do. Here's my music. Here's my website. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. It took a while, but I think after a year and a half, one of them out of like the hundreds that I messaged kind of wrote back and said, hey, I like your work. And then from that one job, as you hear this cliche story, one kind of snowballs into the other. That one person gave me 3 more short films to work on. And then from there on, it kind of just kept going forward from there. So definitely start putting out your stuff, and don't feel shy to reach out to people. So, I mean, the worst that can happen is they don't answer, they say no or something. So
Anyone else have any answers to those questions?
Yeah, for me, I was very underprepared. Like the first gig I got was like at a friend when I was a freshman, and this person did documentary work, and I just like he asked me if I was a film composer, and I was like, yeah, even though I did not even declare a major yet. And then my second year, he said, if you have a film, can you show me your work? and I had no work to show, so I had to make like a whole demo reel like in that same night, and I sent it over. And thank the Lord, yeah, he accepted it, and then from then on, like he has been giving me documentary work since I started, and from him I got another person, and for her I got another person. So there's it's literally most by hearsay, but that like showed me how prepared I need to be basically. So like creating kind of examples, creating kind of like a website. I don't have a website, but I have like music. If someone asks, like I have like 5 tracks that I enjoy that I will send off. And if they hear it and they accept it, then that's good for you. And just contact as much people as you can. That is one thing he said that I totally agree with. Like on LinkedIn, I look up a video game company, I see there's any Berkeley alumni, find those Berkeley alumni, message them, say, hey, I'm graduating, I'm applying to this place. Can you give me any tips? And they will remember your name. Like if you apply, they'll be like, oh, I remember this person from how many years ago. And just like don't feel bad for getting rejected, because I have been rejected so many times. I'm on directors I had a message and I got no response, or like, oh, we'll contact you, and then nothing happens. It's okay. Like that's the whole point of this major, just like trial and error basically. So yeah, that's kind of how I started.
What I love about Denia is like something I hear from you guys is like, oh, I don't know how to get started. I don't have all like the libraries. I don't have the Berkeley bundle yet. I don't have all the gear I need so that I can start writing. That's something I hear from a lot from like underclassmen. And that was kind of how I came in thinking about, oh, in 5th semester, I'll get all the materials I need and then I'll start. And like, that's a pretty common mindset. But what Denia did that like I really admire was that she took with what she had, wasn't it just like labs?
Yeah.
Literally labs, and got her first job that has carried her like throughout these couple years. And so like it matters to me that everybody can hear that, you know, the materials you have to work with, you know, aren't as limiting as you think they would be. And I would really encourage all of you to just take what you have and then just kind of start working with it, because you don't know what you can make.
To kind of add on that, my first gig was actually using Logic stock sounds. So like my demo reel was Logic stock sounds, and they were like, "That sounds cool, let's go." So I was like, "All right, awesome." And as far as writing to people, I actually wrote to a director. I think it was like 4 years ago, and she actually reached back at the beginning of last year saying, "Hey, I want to work on a project with you," after not talking for like 3 years. So things like that do happen. So just make sure you're always.
Yeah. The first thing I ever composed was just with like Logic sounds, and I was so proud of it.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's like not that bad. It's not. It's really not that
It
bad.
really isn't.
Honestly, like if you need a good sounding trombone to learn how to write for trombone, you've got it all wrong. Write for the worst MIDI trombone ever. Like it's okay. You can still get so much more potential. You have so much to work with, even with the limited things you have.
You have a question?
Yeah, can we start questions or should
Yeah. Does anyone have a question? Well, yeah.
I have a question for you, Naya, since you've been working with documentaries and stuff. Do you reach out to like, how did you get into the documentary realm? Like, did you find specific directors that were doing documentaries, or did you just happen to like stumble upon?
I really happened to stumble upon him actually. I met him freshman year because he was visiting another student, like an MPE student that I met in the Tucson dorms. And I said, yeah, I'm a film composer. And he said, do documentary work. I had no idea about documentary work. I had just nothing, like, no grounds for it basically. And then 2 years later, he contacted me back about documentaries. And from him, he was able to tell other documentary workers about me and kind of how I got into it. And then there's like a doc practicum in Berkeley. I did that last semester actually, and just one woman named Ruth Middleton. She's amazing. We didn't really have a click, but I noticed that she is very much in the industry of documentary work, and she's phenomenal. And she will give you opportunities if you go and ask her for it. Like she can recommend you so many directors. If you have like a certain concentration in whatever, say I want to focus on climate change or like race issues or anything that you think is an issue in the documentary like or realm, she like recommend you to somebody, and those things also like bring you kind of forward. So
And she's his teacher? Or
yeah,
professor?
consider Berkeley. Yeah,
What was her name again?
Ruth Mendelson.
Thank you.
Did either Rebecca or Sandra want to add on like the previous prompt, which was about like working and being a student and stuff like that?
I mean, I can. I think like just balance in general is tricky, and you'll never fully get to the point where you feel like you've got it down. So like as far as between like transitioning out of like Harmony 4 into like real, you know, major work and material on top of like other things, I think it can be tricky. I think your teachers are great resources, and like I know on the comp side of things, it's because the teachers have seen my work that they'll send me an email at sometimes, and they'll say, I think you should apply to this, like you'd be the perfect fit as a writer. And that's how I got one of the composition works that I got, was because a teacher thought of me. So don't underestimate like that they're also paying attention to like you, and like could offer you a doorway that you didn't expect. And I think the other thing is like mine was more like we did mixers, 3 years ago or something, and I was at Leslie University and met a director, and I started working with her, and then did a similar thing where I started working with an Emerson director as well, and things like that. But I think you're never going to know everything that you need to know. You're never going to be at the place that you want to, where you feel most prepared. I don't think anyone started and was like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I feel extremely prepared.
Yeah.
And then like went into their first, like, no, there's something you don't know. And that's kind of the fun of it too. And this is the learning curve. So your first one might be like, even your second, third, fourth, fifth, you're going to learn something out of all of those. So don't be afraid of it. Just embrace whatever, whatever it is with what you got, I think.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing to add on to it is this might be more applicable to some people than to others, but like when I was in those lower semesters, I had like serious imposter syndrome. Like I felt like, what I was churning out wasn't quite good enough for whatever opportunities I was trying to apply for. But then whenever I did take the leap and throw something out there, I generally got like good things happening to me. And the first time a paid gig came to me, I was like, whoa, I'm not sure that I'm prepared for this. So I kind of just, threw out what I had, and they were like, yeah, this is really good. I'm going to keep paying you for this. So don't get in your own way.
We are our worst critics, and that's the truth of the issue.
Everybody that did like a Good Dinosaur rescore, we did a rescore for those that weren't here last semester of a scene from the Good Dinosaur, and so many people were like, Lauren, this is my first time doing this. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. And then to everybody that did the rescore, and after listening to everybody's rescores, absolutely every one of you could definitely apply to something, no matter what capacity, So everyone, I think, just like making the leap is hard. It's really scary. The first time I made a leap was signing a contract to a job that I didn't know really how to do. And it was really scary. And I invested in some materials that I needed, just like the right amount of things. And I just like went for it. And I've been contracted for 1.5 years. So, but yeah, I look back on like the previous work that's like going to be released. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I would give anything to redo this. But you can't. And that's okay. Does anyone have any questions? Like a question they want to bring up? I saw your hand first.
How do you feel about writing stock music for libraries like On5 and Audio Jungle? And do you think that's worth investing time?
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah.
So I don't actually work for, look, I got the opportunity to jump into a really big custom library kind of like house. So I don't really do jingles or commercial stuff. I actually write for TV shows.
Okay.
So some of the TV shows were American Pictures, The White Lotus, so The Circus is one of them, The Wheel of Time, Amazon. So it's like, it's not a bad gig. The only thing I can say is that like a lot of work you're gonna do up front won't pay. The only one that does pay me for now is like Telepictures, which is Warner Bros, but that's like, I don't even know how we got there. It's like a super tight circle, but you meet the right person at the right time, and it's just very short. And then the time frame for your royalties to kick in, so you don't even know when they pick your songs until royalty checks come in.
Right.
So it's like there's like a 9-month grace period for when the TV show airs that episode with your music. It takes 9 months for them to generate your first royalty check. So it's not a bad gig, but definitely the more you put into it, so it's like, unfortunately, it's kind of like a numbers game, where like you're composing. I just actually spoke to Lauren the other day, and I calculated how many cues I did in a year, and it was like 187 cues that I had written in the past year. So it's just a matter of like, how much you really want to go for it at that point. I hope that answers it.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's, like when you're let's say you're writing a stock track, are you ever concerned about like that you're selling in the case of, let's say you're doing something like on 5, that you're selling a non-exclusive license and you're putting some melodic material in there that maybe you would want to save for something bigger? Like, is that ever a concern or not really?
I'm not a believer in that. I feel like as a creative, I mean, we study this, we read this stuff. So like being creative is not the problem. I don't feel like there's something that you should hold back because no, this is a very special melody. I mean, who's to say that is a special melody?
Right.
You know what I mean? But definitely if there's some personal things you want to keep, then keep them to yourself. But for the most part, as creatives, I feel like everyone could agree that we can continue to create great music regardless of if it's a beautiful melody or not.
Next question, unless anyone has something to add to writing. Iris, go ahead.
I guess this is open to everyone. But when did you first start using contracts with directors, and were there things you asked for, or did you kind of expect the work? So yeah.
I actually didn't. Like when I tell you, like I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. So I was like the first 2 documentaries I was working with that director. I didn't sign a contract. The first one I didn't get paid for, and the second one I finally asked if I could get paid for this. And then it wasn't until I worked with another director. The first thing she said was like, "Okay, I'm writing the contract," and I'm like, "Contract? Like we have contracts?" And what class was that? Dramatic 3 actually. You kind of go through Rec Scoring 3 with Rich Davis or anyone, teacher. That kind of goes through what contracts are and who you sign with. And there's stuff I wish I knew before I even started doing documentary work, because these are things that protects you in your music and your rights, as well as how much you're getting paid. So I would say start now and like know about this stuff now before you even get involved with other people, because people can just take your work. Like you can write music for a director and then just take it and leave it, and you have like no contract to like look back on and say, well, these are my rights and these are like what kind of like what I own, and like we agree on a certain rate. So let's say do it beforehand.
Yeah, to tag on to that. I don't think the first one I did, but after I like, once you learn it, you'll never go back. Like there are things that you're gonna want on that sheet of paper. You want your rights, and you know who has the rights, who owns what to what. What are you getting paid? You can even put deadlines in there. That could be important if you're on a deadline, and then they start pushing it out now, not on you, which is not uncommon. It's good to have it written down somewhere to say, well, you're pushing it out. What are you gonna do about it? As far as like, am I getting compensated, et cetera, et cetera. And then things like you want to just agree that you're gonna have a credit somewhere, and then that it's your own. You know that you get your own little title screen with your name on it that says, you know, original score composed by, and I know I want that on there. And then like agreements as far as like, is it something you can talk about? Is it something you're not supposed to talk about? You know, like as you get like further and further, there's so much to consider. When you're starting out, you want the basics of like when, you know, what and when, how much money, who owns what, and I want my credit. I think those are like the bare bones, but it can definitely get more complicated as you go.
To add on to like the contract stuff, if you've never had like your first official gig, how do you know like should you be charging, should you not, if you don't have any credible stuff to give them from other directors, or like just do like a first test trial for yourself as well? Like how do you decide what your work is valued at?
I would say that if you have nothing and they're not offering any pay or whatever the case may be, take it. Because then you have something, you know what I mean? So like, I know it sounds like, oh, I want to work for it, but like, don't really think about the money in the beginning, because no one's going to pay you if you haven't done anything. You know, if you don't have any like kind of credit or anything that you've done. So I would say take it. Now, obviously, if you have a bad gut feeling of working with these people, you want to work with good people. So like trust your gut to see how the person is, if they're a good person, a bad person, talk to them, have conversations with them. But generally, if it's like your first one and you just haven't gotten anything done before, then I would say take it.
Okay, actually add on to that. Another thing that I've heard, I don't know from where, it might have been from a teacher, honestly, but the idea of, especially when you're working with professional directors, setting a precedent of like, okay, I can do this first project with no pay, but like if you want to continue working with me, then be like, these are my rates. I want to start getting paid for what I'm doing. Which in some cases they may not want to work with you again, but honestly, like they need to respect you as a working composer at that point. So maybe it's someone that you may not want to work with.
I also want to add, like, we always hear everybody go, "Oh, time is money," but it's quite true. And I have some examples that kind of like explain what I'm talking about. So my very first contract that I signed, that I'm still in, that's going to be reevaluated at X date that I've signed on, is a per minute payment. So per minute of music that I complete, I get paid X amount. That's pretty chill, right? Because if you write something in like 2 hours, I mean, yeah, you can make a lot of money really quickly, but if it takes you forever, like you kind of are the boss of how much money you want to make and how fast you want to make it. So that's a good scenario. But something that I did not put in my contract, that I really wish I'd put in my contract, was what kind of cut I was to receive from the film and how much I can make per edit that I make for these people. So for example, I put hours into this beautiful score for one of the it's a documentary company, for one of the episodes that I was working on. It took me a while and I was so proud of it. And then they went, "Oh, that's really cool, Lauren, but we cut out like 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes, and we're just gonna need you to like rework it." That is not an easy job. You do not just go cut, done. It's very hard, and it takes hours that I got paid nothing for. And still to this day, I will receive cuts from the company that are not locked. So I put all this effort in, and then they go, "Yeah, we changed this," and you're like, "Oh, okay," and you get paid $0 for it, and it feels bad because you're putting tons of effort in, and you're just watching the clock go by, and all the things you have to do for school, and it's just like, ugh. And then the other thing that I made, I had something happen, like you really need to, your value to a project, especially when money's involved. That means like you're valuable. I was working on a feature length film this summer. It was like a 90 or 100-minute film. And they were like, "Lauren, why aren't you prioritizing us? Like, obviously you have another project prioritizing." And I'm like, "Yes, I do, because they're paying me more." And that's just how it works. You're paying me really, really barely anything, truly. When I really looked at it, I was like, that's like $5 an hour. Oh my gosh. So I broke it all down. I was like, yeah, honestly, like I'm not getting paid as much with this job. So while I'm completing it and I'm doing everything within the timeline, it's not expedited maybe how you want it, because I'm simply not being paid more. And they went, "All right, well, what are you being paid right now? And we'll match it." So like, it's okay to have honest conversations sometimes about like, your other jobs, what you're worth and stuff like that. And as you start to build credits, because now, the film I was working for, I already had my documentary credits under me. I'm worth something to them, so they did pay. And that was a really great feeling for someone to be like, okay, they put the effort in. Did I prioritize them just as much? Yes, I did. Because, and that's kind of a very specific example, but, money's hard because it's hard to ask for it. But it's important to have the conversation of like, what's your budget? What's your music budget? And when they give you that answer, I got asked to work on a film. Like, what's your music budget? $1,000. Okay. $1,000. All right. So then I'm thinking, okay, how many minutes of music? About 15. All right. That's going to take me, with how much classwork I have, that's going to be a while, like that'll take me a little bit. So, it's hours. And so I stipulated in the contract, I want this much up front. I want this much halfway through, and I want this much at the end. And I want, like my edits done I want my reviews of my edits done on this day, like ways to make my money that they're paying me more valuable, so that the process isn't, a 6-month process where like you wait around and you're like, I really need to get paid. And they're like 3 months later, oh, sorry, I forgot edits, So it's really important to really hash out every small detail, because your time is worth a lot, especially when you're trying to build credits, and you don't want a project that just won't get out of your hair for very little. Anyone else have anything to add to that contract before we wrap up?
What you were saying about getting unlocked pictures and then having to do edits on your music for pretty much no money at that point.
Mhm.
Do you think it's enough to just put in a contract that you have to get a locked picture, that that's what they have to give you? Or do you think that you need to make a clause about like, if they if a situation like that happens, here's how the money would work.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this. This has happened like with practicum. So I can speak a little bit on this and everyone else can add to it. In my opinion, I'm fine with receiving a not locked cut. I need to know that it's not locked because people often won't tell you that it's locked. I need to know that it's locked. And I also do then require, like, you know, for you have in the contract will say you have like 3 edits I will do. And then after that I will start charging. Or some composers that are like, you know, really have the rights to do so. I do not. Maybe some people do. I don't know. I don't feel like I can do this where they just go, I'm only going to do 3 edits. So make your edits valuable. And in a way, that's a really good way to deal with the director. Because if you tell them, I'm only going to do 3 edits until you start charging, they're going to go, oh, I better make sure I'm really thorough because I don't want to pay you more money. Like, it really forces people to be effective with their time and yours. Anyone else? Add to that?
I think that's true. I think the flip end of the coin is like you also want it to still be collaborative.
Mhm.
So like the issue with putting a restraint, yes, our time is so important. My gosh. And if it's getting really out of hand, please step in and like make your voice heard because too much is too much and people have definitely like kind of abused the your time in that sense. I think the other thing, the part of that where it gets tricky is like if you only allow so many, right? Then you maybe your collaborative side of things may suffer a little bit more in that regard. Because if they're like moving towards a better and better idea, that also benefits you in some sense as far as like what your end product is going to be. And so I think to think about that too. You want a healthy relationship with them too. You don't want it to just necessarily because you might build off that. We've seen that like one relationship begets another film and another film and another film. So as you're starting, you do want to think consciously about how are we also collaborating and not just like making rules and like, you know, that's part of it as well, I think.
Another thing I can add to revisions and stuff is just expect it. There's no such thing as a lock.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
You're
Yeah.
never going to submit and they're just
That's-
like, I love it. It's
No,
perfect.
That's really even if it's one note that like no, that note doesn't feel like sad enough. You're like what? So there's always gonna be something. Just expect it. And what I tend to do also if I know a director is a certain way is just as you're expecting it, fit it into your budget as well. So instead of saying maybe, I mean, that's another approach you could take, like saying 3 revisions and that's it. Or you can just say, here's my price, include everything in there. And if any case, you know, just add an extra revision. But you've already budgeted your time for that extra revision stuff because it is going to happen. You're not in control of that. And you can't say, no, don't do it either because you're not in control of the film. So just keep that in mind and always expect that when you're going to work on a project, expect those revisions.
I think the other thing is like if you're seeing revisions pop out like really quickly, you could wait a couple of days and get like the 3rd one. You don't necessarily have to start on that very first one if 2 days later they're about to do something else necessarily. I know a professor talked about that where it's like she would kind of like, you know, wait a little bit because she knew their style was like really fast and that meant more work for her in the end. So it depends on like what you decided on, I think, between you and your director.
Yeah, Wyatt, wait really quick, Sandra, did you want to add to that at all?
No, I think you guys kind of covered it.
Yeah, Wyatt, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, so I assume that for most gigs and most commissions, you're gonna be using like sample libraries. Is there ever a time, and also with just compositions in general, that you find time or the money or whatever to put into actually doing live recording?
Ooh, I'm doing that
Let's
now.
go,
Yeah, so I'm doing a live recording of this film that I got, but I already got the set pay for it way before. But I asked her, can I do a live recording and have all the string players? And like her rate was already like stable. Like she won't change her rate for me. So what I'm doing is taking out the budget I have just to put into players. And I was telling my friend about it, like this feels like unfair because like I already told since the beginning. But he told me like this stuff is gonna be like you're investing your kind of future into like what the live plays that you have now. Then like people will see that work and hear, wow, it's a live recording of this. And kind of how you based on that too. So like you don't even think of it as like you're wasting money, you're just investing money into kind of the future and like what you're producing in that film. So I definitely recommend doing like live recordings. I never did it before and I kind of wish like throughout the years, you have so many Berkeley players. Like people just love to play. People love to play. Like that's one thing I realized. And sometimes like they will accept it. They'll do it without the money, but this is the first time like this is an outside project. I'm like I want to be kind of professional about it, and I want to pay you like how much you deserve for being in my session. So, and I will get no money. I realize I did all the math. I'll get no money out of this, but I think it's so worth it. I'm so excited to start doing it. So
This is something that composers deal with, not just in their freshman, sophomore, junior, college, like Pinar Toprak, when she wanted to be the composer for Wonder Woman, hired the like London Symphony Orchestra or something, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that she didn't have to get the job. And did she get the job? No, she didn't. She did not get the job. But what she did have was a killer recording that she then used to get, I believe, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So investing through projects in yourself is a really great way to also better yourself, I believe.
It adds value to yourself. Just think of the stock market. You put money to get, to get some kind of a profit or something, Just think of it like that. You're investing in yourself. It not only makes you look better, but it brings up your value because now you can say like, hey, like this is what I can do. So,
Awesome.
keep that in mind.
Question? Not, we have, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so what would you recommend are like the best first steps to getting your gig? Call like DMing people, like as many directors as you know. Or what are some like the other approaches you can use?
I wouldn't say best. There's really no best. It's like whatever works. If you see that the DMing works, do it that way. If not, go to film festivals. If not, reach out to a friend. If not, just put something on social media, like a nice professional picture, and put like $10 on Instagram ads and let it run.
Yeah.
There's just so many ways to just promote your stuff nowadays that there really is no best way. It's more like how much you do to promote yourself as a composer. At the end of the day, you need to remember that you need to treat this like a business. Like if you were selling a phone or a watch or something, you're gonna be like, hey, look at my watch, look at this, and you're always gonna be kind of like almost like spamming people because you're promoting your product, you're promoting yourself. So treat it like a business, and don't be afraid to just talk about yourself.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like I don't mean like for me it was just by hearsay. But then after that I realized I want to start contacting people and like I am trying to invest in games as well and being like a game composer as well as sound designer. And like you contact those people and saying like, hey, I love like your stuff. And most people don't want to hear about their music. They want to hear about like their films. If it has something out, you compliment them, you like tell them that you really love it. And that's kind of builds a connection of like, wow, if you don't like you appreciate what the art that I'm doing. Like when they see that they're gonna start hiring you. Like years later, they might think about, okay, I remember this person who loved my work. Like I want to see like what they're finally doing. But it's definitely kind of contacting. For me, it was more of a hearsay, but for other people who contact, like, there's really no best way. But whatever you feel like you want to do to like get your foot in the door and try to contact people or whatever, just do it. So
It literally takes 5 minutes to just open up Instagram, copy and paste something from your notes. Literally pre-write it and then just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste.
To add on to that also, I think what I've had experience the best with making like connections to film directors or anyone like who I could potentially work with on these different projects, whether it's games or films or art installations, if you really wanted to, is go to events. So for video games, there's a lot of game jams. There's GDC, like big conventions, things like that, where like you can meet people face to face. We've been online for a while because of COVID, and so like people have ended up just doing things more online. But now that things, well, hopefully slowly we're starting to open back up, and those bigger events will start to become more of a normal again. Go to the events, and for people in Berkeley, it's go to the clubs, whether it's the AES audio engineering, meet MP&E kids who can book sessions for you and get you into sessions to like actually get live recordings of stuff that you want outside of class. And then there's composition clubs, there's the WFI, there's film scoring, there's the VGMC. They all will be running events and meetings where you can connect to people, whether it's people who are doing the same thing as you, or they'll set up mixers with Leslie. And I don't know if anything has happened with Emerson in a while, but
Nope.
yeah, but things like that, they'll be setting up those kind of meetings. Go to those. Like if it's your first 4 semesters here at Berkeley and you're still kind of haven't gotten into the major classes yet, I would almost say prioritize those mixers and those events where you can meet other students and collaborate a bit.
And they want to find you. Those know, like student filmmakers also want you.
Yeah, yeah.
They just don't necessarily know how to find you either, I think sometimes. So like our experience is like, if you're in the same room with them, odds are you're gonna find someone you want to work with, but the trick is like connecting. So I don't know, like reach out to college clubs, see what filmmakers who are also students
Yeah.
want to. You just be like, can I even just come to your filmmaker club? I'm not a filmmaker,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
but I would love to, that's something you could try also.
There's literally a senior film director that I was working, like I contacted just because I wanted to like say hello, I like this film, and he was like, I want to keep in contact with you just because I've gotten to my senior semester at Loyola and I don't know any composers, and I think for the most part they're going to be looking for anyone to keep in contact with now and potentially for forever.
I mean, like, don't we have like a seminar happening that everyone's welcome to? It's just like
I think that's just
I thought that was in the big email. Yeah, I guess something that also would include on this, check if it is, would be, reach out to people and like, the boss that I work for, so interested in my growth, so interested in like, how can like I work with you to like improve our relationship? How like what kind of opportunities can I help you with? Because they're in Los Angeles that like, we can give you, like what anyone I can connect you with. So he was able to connect me with like the trailer composer that used to work for Hans Zimmer and did Pirates and stuff like that, and then left and started his own trailer company. And now he mentors all my work. Like it's really important to pursue people that care about your growth, no matter who that is, whether that's a director you meet, a teacher that's really invested, one of the faculty members that's not in the film scoring department, another student that's really plugged in. Like you just invest your time in people that also are invested in your growth as well. That's really important. And you're not always going to get that. Sometimes you have directors that are like, I really don't want to talk to you, just do the job and I'll pay you and we're done. And that's fine. You don't need growth from everything, but it's good to find and surround yourself with long-term relationships that are going to definitely like build you up and stuff like that. I went to Sean McMahon's office when I was 18. And I told him, these are my career goals. I want to go to grad school. I want to work here. And I was all over the map. He was like, oh, are you graduating soon? And I was like, no, I'm graduated from high school. And so, and I bugged him all the time. He was always like, oh, I can meet with you. And I'd be like, can we just talk about literally nothing? And just make, I don't know, me, you, I'm interested in your career. There's a picture of you shaking hands with John Williams. Tell me about it. Stuff like that. And, he's been such a huge factor in helping me, achieve some of my goals as I'm ready to move out, into different parts of the world. And he's just been great because he's invested in my growth because I put a lot of effort in as well, So it's kind of like this two-sided thing. Someone asked a question on Instagram that I want to
Also, I think it might be because they made a poster.
Yeah, right? It's on the big, okay, so
Yeah.
let's do it. We're gonna screen the senior seminar that's happening after this. If anyone wants to come watch it, it's meeting some Sundance directors. If anyone wants to stay. Okay, one question for the panel. Should I start with an internship in Boston or go straight to Los Angeles?
Wow.
Sandra, any thoughts on
That's a
Los
good
Angeles
question.
internships?
I personally am trying to explore avenues that are not in Los Angeles, especially like these past couple of years. It's not the only place where movies and content gets made anymore. Boston, I don't know if it's like the place to be, but I mean, there's also like New York to consider and, parts of Canada. I feel like LA is not like the one and only place to go. I don't know about you guys.
No, Nashville and Atlanta too. They're pretty big, getting big in film production as well. So those are other cities to consider. I know Nashville is like substantially cheaper than any of the other major cities, but it just really depends on what you are kind of going for. If it's you want to be in LA because that's like the home of it, then you're gonna need to bust your what for a little bit, but you have to work for what you want. So it just really depends on your priorities at that point.
I think I heard a teacher say, Tim said at one point, the devil's in the details. What kind of job are you applying to? What will they offer you? Are they a boss you want to work with? Are they a company you want to work with? If Boston offers that, and it's like fits what you want to do, why would you turn that down? If in my opinion, if LA fits the Boston better, yeah, just like Jonathan said.
We have someone that wants to chime in on the Zoom, someone that everybody should get to know. His name is Medhat. He is a Canadian composer in the graduate degree at Berkeley right now, also a teacher of film scoring. He wanted to weigh in on something.
Hey,
Hello,
everybody.
Medhat.
Hey, Lauren. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in because I've heard Canada. I just wanted to also explain how it works here. Usually, for a composer to get hired, hi everybody. It's tax credit related because the money comes from the government, doesn't come from private investors, unlike the US. So if the money, let's say I'm in Montreal, so let's say when I work in Toronto, unless it's a co-production with Quebec, they will likely not hire me because it works on a point system. Composers are considered key position. So if a composer comes from Quebec, they get a point for Quebec. And they need X amount of points from that province, X amount of points from that province. So I basically can't work on a Toronto production unless I live in Ontario, unless they get that point elsewhere, but they will likely get it from the composer. So, just a little nuance about Canada. It's actually easier for me to work in the States than to work in my own country. So it's fascinating. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a bunch of different things like that in other countries as well that like
Absolutely.
in London kind of just have to know who you're working with, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, you're right. Europe is very similar, actually. If you're, let's say you're Canadian and French and it's a co-production, you can win in both situations. You can get the point for France or for Canada. So yeah, it's something to know. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So we did find out also that the interview with the Sundance composers is open like to everyone. It was on the film scoring department newsletter.
Anyone wants to stay?
So we just impromptu decided to screen it here because I don't think there's any classes here.
Is anyone interested in coming to stay to watch
Stay
it?
around.
Anyone? Okay, cool. Well,
If you have class, you are free to go.
yeah.
But if not,
You want to stay? Yeah, we're meeting with some Sundance composers. I'm
Yeah.
gonna test the volume. We should check to see if there's a class. I don't think there is.
because it's
the punk
usually
part.
exactly.
It's a seminar.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
It's from your gut.
Great.
Huh?
Like what you said. I think about like,
Yeah.
for example, you're working on some guy basically for free, and then I'm like, oh, and he tells you like, how much are you gonna charge me? How do I know how much to charge at the beginning?
It depends on what they're willing to pay you. Because like when it gets to that point with, I'm working with a lot of students films. So like if they have a budget, I want like it's almost gonna be a percentage of.
Yeah, so we're still doing kind of, I think Sheldon talk about that, of going with a percentage of course, if they're not on a big budget, ask for like.
Exactly. Well, like if you get into projects where there are people who are being paid, like if actors are being paid, if editors, CGI, VFX people are being paid, you have the right to ask, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of whatever budget you have for the project and just take like a percentage. You have working room. Yeah, no worries. I don't think we'll be able to record the Sundance thing because they're third party unaffiliated with us. So but yeah, you're fine. No. All one second. I think I just wanted to make sure. I was like, I think you're right. I was like, okay. Well, yeah, no, you're not an I might get back to you about that because I know
It's very relevant for me.
yes, no, there are a number of students who are in the same position, and I've had conversations with teachers about this. You know, Richard Dennis.
I haven't cleared the major.
Okay, that is fine. No worries. But like, I would probably consider on it now.
That's why.
Exactly. Richard Davis or Tim. Yeah, are two that I've talked to. I'm sure you could talk to anybody. But especially since it's your earlier semester, I would also suggest just emailing a few of the professors and asking if they're free to have a one-on-one. Tim Boone. I love Tim Boone. Richard Davis knows a lot. I'll be back in class.
Great, thank you. Your meeting with
Also, you still have 106?
No, it's actually 12.
All right. Okay. I was gonna say I had a 6 for like so long.
Yeah. So I know.
Yeah. And
Right.
I would also say.
Yeah, we're both.
Right.
Hey,
Right,
Kenny,
yes.
in a moment, can you help me with the
Yeah.
audio?
Yeah.
I can't
Um,
get the
Somebody
audio.
on intervention.
Me too.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm using this for,
Bro, I'm not okay. I'm like, I get it.
For example.
Yeah. They have that problem.
I'm not gonna go we are on.
Right.
All right, everyone on Zoom, this is gonna wrap up our meeting since we can't record the Sundance meeting, so I will see you all later.
Everybody.